Kamala Harris finally did something that the voters were asking for. She did an interview on Fox News. The reason why this is important is because she left friendly territory and she had to deal with an interviewer who wasn't going to hold back on her and who was definitely going to ask her some tough questions. The question is, what did they talk about? How did she do? And what did we learn? Of course, something like this is just a matter of opinion. Welcome to the Mr. Wilson's Got a Headache podcast. I'm your host, Dennis the Mennis. Since you're here already, like the video for me, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment in the comment section. I want to know what you think about what I say in this video. Check this out.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border.
There's not much that we know about Kamala Harris. The one thing that we have learned through this process is that she doesn't like to answer questions directly. In this clip, she avoided answering the question, and she went straight back into her normal talking points. One of the mistakes that I think she made was making it seem like Donald Trump, even though he wasn't the president, was so powerful and so influential that he was able to get Congress to deny a bill. This suggests that she and Joe Biden really didn't have control of the country. That really doesn't speak positively about your leadership skills. At the same time that she makes this claim that Donald Trump stopped this bill that she entered in on day one, you have to remember that during that time, Democrats not only had the executive branch, president and vice president, they also had the Senate and the House. So essentially, they could pass anything that they wanted to pass, including student loan debt and so many other things they promised to their constituents. This is not my opinion. This is all fact. It just sounds like a big excuse to me. The next question in this interview was about some of the consequences of her decisions and Joe Biden's decisions that the American people had to face as a result of these open borders. Check this out.
Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungari's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
If you've seen a few of my videos, by now you've heard me say that 90% of communication is nonverbal. In this clip, looking at Kamala Harris, I can't help but remember what a body language expert once said. When a person is answering a question and they're saying with their mouth yes, but their body is saying no, in most cases, this person is misleading the person that they're talking to. I'm not an expert in that field. Do your own research. But on top of that, her response just really didn't seem genuine to me. Now, at first, she looked off. I don't know if she was looking at somebody off camera or what. And during that time, I could see some guilt on her face. But when she answered the question, it just didn't seem genuine to me. And not only that, instead of sticking to that conversation, she abruptly moved on and said we should be focused on something else. One thing you can trust about people is the patterns of behavior that they display in front of your face. You can never get to know somebody in one setting. You can never get to know somebody in just a few weeks or months, but you can get to know their patterns of behavior. And when you see a pattern develop, you have to believe that pattern. The conversation kept going. He asked some more questions. Let's check out and see what she had to say about the next question.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret. Well, that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it.
We just talked about patterns of behavior. And in this clip, we see Kamala Harris try to avoid the responsibility connected to her decisions and her voting record. Nobody wants to sit under a leader, whether that be male or female, that points down to everybody else when things go wrong. Nobody wants to be blamed for listening to the directions of the leader. What would you say about your supervisor at work if they were blaming you for doing exactly what they told you to do? I mean, she tried to distance herself and make it seem like the border issue was so bad before her that the issues that we have today are only because other presidents didn't do what they needed to do to secure the border before she got there. No connection to the 4 years that she's been there. It's somebody else's fault. It couldn't be Kamala. Since she won't take responsibility, let's talk about some facts. There was an immigration problem in the United States early on in the Trump administration, but Trump took decisive action and the border crossing numbers dropped significantly to some of the lowest numbers that this country has ever seen. That's a fact. Somebody don't like what I'm saying right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, your feelings are irrelevant when it comes to facts. It is what it is. But during the Biden-Harris administration, the numbers have grown to levels that this country has never seen in its entire history. And that's also a fact you cannot beat, in my opinion, someone like Donald Trump while playing old school politics. I remember when every politician used to get in front of our faces and lie to us. Republican, Democrat, everybody. But Donald Trump is not conducting himself in that way. So the rules have to change. And I personally think this is the biggest failure of the Kamala Harris campaign. What do you think about it? What did you think about the interview with Kamala Harris and Bret Baier from Fox News? Do you think that you learned anything? Was she clear on her policy positions? Is your opinion opposite of mine? No matter what that is, I want to talk about it in the comment section. Again, remain respectful in the comment section. And remember, do me a favor since you're still watching, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'll see you on the next video.